Hello and welcome back. Today you join me at an incredibly peaceful St Margaret's Bay near Dover in Kent. Been here since about 5 AM this morning, just trying to find a composition that works with this sunrise that's happening in the background. At the moment the sun is just starting to come up, looking absolutely fantastic. I've got the whole place to myself. Might be something to do with the fact that it is sort of 5:30 on a Sunday morning, but stunning nonetheless. Got the cliff top in the left of the frame, we've got the sunset happening. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous behind us in the right hand side of the frame, and then some rocks in the sea further out. Now I live in Kent in the southeast of the UK, which isn't exactly known for its amazing landscapes. It's very flat, don't have many mountains or anything like that, there's no real waterfalls to speak of. So for the last 6 or so years, the majority of my photography has consisted of seascapes and woodlands. So here's a few tips that I've learned over the years on how to improve your seascape photography. Now that the sun has risen a bit more, I've had a mad dash around to the other side of the beach to try and photograph these cliffs behind me. The light on them is fantastic, reflecting off the chalk cliffs really nicely, giving them a nice orange glow. Got to bring me on to my first tip really, which is to know whether your location is a sunrise or a sunset location. Obviously coasts work very well, they work very well in all weathers, storms, sunrise, sunset, it's absolutely fantastic to shoot coastline. But if you do want to shoot a sunset or sunrise, which is when you get the best light, you need to know which direction your coast goes. There's a very good app that I use to detect the sun's location. I'll put a link in the description below. You can use it and it'll just tell you where the sun's pointing and whether you want to shoot into the sun or away from the sun to get that fantastic light. So the composition I've gone for here is using this curve in the sea, right, as a sort of leading line into the cliffs, into the main image, with then those cliffs reflecting the stunning orange light. For this next shot, just set one up with these rocks in the foreground, the water swirling all around them. We've got the cliffs in the background. This will be, I think, another location to come back to first thing at sunrise. It looked great this morning with the orange sky in the background, but you can only take one shot at sunrise, so it wasn't the one I went for. Either way, it brings me on to another tip, which is if you are going to do seascapes, you need to get yourself a tripod. If you want to do long exposures to really smooth out that water, something you need to hold the camera steady. You know, it can be a basic one, but just something to keep that camera still. Going along with that, filters are really helpful. I don't normally talk about gear because I don't think it makes too much difference, but if you are doing seascapes, I think a circular polarizer is essential to take the glare off the water. Just turn it and it will let you see through the water, let you see the rocks underneath and stop the sun reflecting off it quite so much. And also various ND filters, just to give you longer exposures, take that shutter speed down from, say, you know, half a second, which might smooth out the water a little bit, but then you can take it down to, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds, depending on which filter you go with. And that will just really smooth out the water, give you that nice ethereal effect. Well, I like it anyway. So if you're going to do seascapes seriously, I'd invest in some filters. Now this is more of a general photography composition tip really, but I think it is worth mentioning for seascapes as well, which is to get your camera nice and low. This camera is probably about 40 centimetres off the ground, and it just gives you a different perspective. It's not the shot that everyone sees the world from eye level, and this just is a bit different and draws people into your photo. It also gives you much more of the sea in the shot rather than looking down, and if you've got rocks or foreground interest, you can get a lot more of those in, which just adds to the depth of your photo. So get low. Another thing you really want to check before you go and take your seascape photos is the tide level. 2 reasons. One, safety. You don't want to be finding yourself cut off by a tide, end up being one of those people who's washed out to sea and has to be rescued in the newspapers. And 2, you want to make sure it works for the shot you want to take. Absolutely nothing worse than finding your amazing shot location, getting up at 5 AM to go take the photo, and then getting there to realise that there's no water and all you've got is miles of messy beach in your shot. Believe me, I've done it many times. Quite often in seascapes I like to put a foreground element in the front of the frame, just adds some depth to the photo and draws your eye in, gives you some more detail as well. So here I've got these rocks set up in the foreground which are in the sea, the water's lapping over them quite nicely, and then we've got the big cliffs in the background. quick tip for you: if you want the elements in the foreground, like these rocks, to appear much larger in the frame than they actually are, here, you know, the cliffs are enormous, and if I just have some tiny rocks at the bottom of the picture, they won't really do anything. So what you can do is step back a little bit and zoom in, go for a longer focal length. So here we're going for about 150 millimeters, and that will just make those rocks in the foreground appear much larger, make them much more impactful, just make the image, bring it to a new level really. Now if you want to see some more about that, I've got a whole video on focal length and aperture, which I'll link to in the top right. So if you want some more details, click on that, go and watch, and that'll really explain how focal length can really change your image. The final seascape photography tip that I have is to take the time to set your shot up level. This is something that applies in generic landscape photography as well, but it's particularly important with seascapes because you've often got the horizon in your shot. Now it's something you can adjust in post quite easily, but then you start to lose resolution and your sort of cropping ability as well. So it's really worth taking the time to set your shot up level. If your camera's got a built-in level gauge, use it. If not, you just have to do it by eye and correct later. But it's worth taking that extra bit of time just to make sure it's good when you compose your shot. I think that's pretty much all the tips I've got for seascape photography. If you've got some of your own, leave them in the comments, and then we can all learn together. Thank you so much for watching. If you've liked this, maybe give it a like. Consider subscribing and see some of my other content on these sort of beginner photography lessons, and I'll see you soon.